to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Kortney Murray, CEO of Coastal Capital. Thanks for joining me, Kortney.
I love it. I'm excited to do this with you today.
No, I'm glad to have you on here. As I mentioned prior to recording, a little nervous because I've seen you on multiple stages from an interview and presentation perspective. So, hopefully I don't mess up too much. But we'll have some fun no matter what.
Absolutely. I think being in the industry and knowing a lot about one another, this is just a fun chat so we can educate anyone out there who wants to watch. I love it.
Excellent, Kortney. So for those people who haven't had an opportunity to meet you yet in person, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career to date in equipment finance?
Sure. I don't know how far back you want me to start, but I've been a three-time entrepreneur, a two-time failed from undercapitalization. And we can get into that a little bit later
Sure,
on.
sure.
I I I have a big passion for what we do, and equipment finance is one portion of it, but what we do for others in the education side of helping entrepreneurs, business owners, people who are structuring, whether it's a sole proprietorship or a corporation, just giving them the knowledge that we have, mostly being in the business for so long and being an entrepreneur outside of this industry who failed because of using all of my cash flow at the time, not knowing that this industry existed, is what has kept me here for over 20 years and Coastal Capital for over 15 or close to 15, excuse me. So,
Okay. That's perfect. So, do you mind just kind of walking through Coastal Capital then? Introduce the organization.
yeah, so Coastal Capital, it's capital with a K. I'm Kortney with a K. So I thought that was very, great.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because when I first sent over to Blair like the Fireside listing, I'm like, I think I spelled it wrong, and then I was like, okay, it's right, and then
Yep.
I wasn't sure if you tried to find the right website, and then it was like taken. So
No, I did this on purpose. It's funny. So
okay,
when I opened my first equipment finance company, it was my maiden name, which was Farhat. I'm Lebanese. And
okay,
then when I got married and started growing my business, I realized that Farhat Leasing probably wasn't the most, opportune name to grow with. And so I changed, I moved from California out to Florida. And in 2010, I opened Coastal Capital. And I thought the capital with a K was great. And we'll keep the coastal with the C so we're visible online. And my husband actually works with me. He came back and started working with me in 2015, and he's Chris. So the CK really worked out for our organization. um, but we really pride ourselves in a human relationship. We do specifically work with a lot of heavy equipment. I sold heavy equipment for quite some time when I was
okay,
younger, sold cars, and that's a big field that I've always loved. I'm knowledgeable about it, but we've also filtered into a lot of women in business. It's something I'm really passionate about and something I speak
okay.
on stage about because although we have a portfolio and many, many clients that come through here that are gentlemen that we absolutely love, have helped us grow, we have a lack of application flow from women. And it's because of the education side of it. I've heard a lot of women that I've spoken with on stage and things like that that say that they just didn't know that this was an option. And when you hear a no when you're applying for financing, a lot of times you give up. And a lot of women, they may have been stay-at-home moms or maybe, you know, uh,
Sure.
had children or gave up a career. And so when you hear a no, sometimes you just want to sit back down and just think maybe this wasn't for me. But Coastal Capital is something that I've always prided our values, mission, and vision on helping assist entrepreneurs grow in any way, shape, or form, no matter what field they come from, and finding a way to help structure their growth, even if they're at an incapable position from the beginning.
Perfect, and thank you for sharing that. I mean, yeah, you hit on so many things there. Brooke, it's like, hey, what about this? And she, oh, I can't do that. That piece of equipment's going to be like 80 grand. Well, it's like, you can lease or finance that, right? And it's like, no, I need to pay for the whole thing. And you're just like, come on.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, one of our most successful clients, she started in her dorm room for $1,200, started an idea out of a food tent, and now she has 35 she has 35 trucks. She has over 30 locations. She's nationwide. She's now franchising. And I thought, somebody who understood the cash flow scenario was somebody who branded themselves. And another thing that business owners don't know is they can use money to brand. It's like you could have the most expensive truck or medical laser or whatever it may be, but how do people know you have it? And so if you run out of money to market that equipment, then we have, the factor of how do people know that you are able to provide that service? And so when you get people who are buying things and assets to understand the capabilities of the growth, you can always grow into it, but it's a lot harder to take away if you run out of cash flow.
No, 100%. I mean, that's kind of gets my head thinking a little bit too, right? Where you're just like, yeah, you can have the best thing out there, but if no one knows about you,
Right.
then word of mouth can't really spread until, but eventually, yeah, no, that's all great points.
Right. You could have the best hot dog truck, but if you're not in front of a hungry concert venue, who's going to be eating? You could have the cheapest hot dogs and be parked in front of a concert venue and sell more than somebody who has the most amazing hot dogs. And we start thinking about those things as business owners because you have to solve a problem. And if you don't have if you have a solution, but you don't have a problem, then you have a problem. Right. And so we have to always think of it that way.
Or if you have a hot dog truck, just follow any equipment finance, conference around, and then from the hours of 12 and 2, you're gonna kill it.
100%. I know we've been to enough that a lot of us would be eating off that truck. We just gave somebody a great business idea.
Yeah, exactly. So are you at liberty to say what this individual, this young lady was cooking in a dorm room? I'm
She
assuming it
is
was food.
she is my friend now. And I've
Okay.
done shows with her. I don't know if you've heard of the Slutty Vegan. Pinky
Okay.
Cole. I know it's a funny name. She's amazing though. She started this just as an idea, and her her marketing and things really came first, and that was important. But it was a $1,200 idea in the dorm room that ended up being like a 400. I think they're valued at 100 or $400 million after a certain amount of time in franchising now. But it's just a pretty exciting thing to watch when you've seen somebody start it from scratch. So
I just think of, I mean, granted, it's been a quarter of a century since I was in a dorm room. God, but it's like, I just think of someone with like food, especially some, I guess not saying vegan food stinks. Food in general, just in a dorm, you're just like, oh, what's that?
well, I think probably when we grew up, it was a little different. I think our dorm rooms looked a little different than they do these days.
Yeah.
Mine was
Yeah,
much smaller.
yeah, I mean, I think Jeremy will start looking at some colleges probably next year, but yeah, no,
Yes. The dorm rooms are much bigger, and there's more than cup of noodles, I think, available.
spoiled generation. A cup of noodles is
Yes,
what got us through, man.
it is. I love it.
Awesome. And so Coastal Capital is in Florida. That's where you're
Yes.
based. Employees all in Florida. I mean, do you guys have any other locations throughout the U.S.?
No, we don't right now. We have some action happening for some growth, but right now we are here locally. We do have some employees that work in different areas, California, other side of Florida. We do, because I did start in California. I started way back in 2003. I can tell you at a California company. I have also made the rounds in the leasing industry before I started on my own. And so we started with vendors from California, Maryland, Atlanta. I lived in Boston, picked up my husband in Boston, got him into the financial world. He's never left. So it's been pretty amazing to see his career shift. And just so we wanted to service all around. And it's really hard we have a lot of banks that are obviously on the West Coast. And so it's nice to be able to hit those hours if we have somebody, funding or processing during those hours. So just kind of all over diverse. We want to make sure that we hit everyone. And if somebody's willing to work mostly in this type of industry, we want to give them a chance.
Perfect. And do you guys hold your own book, or do you guys sell
Small.
majority of it off?
Yep, it's a small book. We are in the process of a capital equity raise because I would like to do more for women in business. It's something that's new to me, and I've always wanted to go after a little bit bigger. I love what our lenders have always done for us, but we
Uh,
do hold a small portfolio of the things I've believed in, from stage appearances to authors. I've done a lot for authors. I've done a lot for a lot of people who do the big stage appearances, shows, coaches, put together events. I've done a lot of events. So there's been some business that have come out of the public speaking, but also knowing where they're at and knowing that ticket sales provide money to them after the ticket sales and how the events work, and really getting an understanding about the business. So it's opened up new industry eyes for us
hmm,
at business, and it allows us to underwrite internally some things that our traditional lenders probably wouldn't want to get their arms wrapped around.
sure, I could just imagine that where it's like, let's look at the cash flow of this, concert or something. It's
Yes.
going to raise X number of dollars, but for us to make a 500,000, we need to spend 200. You go to a bank, they're going to be like, "What
What?
collateral do you have? Like, what are you
Exactly.
going to
And
do to
so
do
we
this?" Yeah,
we've gotten
that's
creative.
interesting.
There's been creative, I've I've learned enough to know I'm not gonna do anything, that's
Sure,
threatening, but it's understanding industries, I think, is where sometimes as, we come into this industry, I think it's exciting. We learn a lot of different things, but really understanding how their cash flows. I mean, even in the construction world, if they have to put money up for a bond, sometimes you have a good cash flowing business, but they have to put 50 to $100,000 up to win a bid or a bond, and then they might not need to take a short-term bridge loan. And that's not taking from Peter to pay Paul. That's to have a money going into a project that
sure.
they may have. And so understanding the cash flow and also seasonal business and things like that, it's been as we go through the economic times, you learn, but we really pride ourselves here to get the understanding of how the industry works, because you want the demographic, psychographic, and geographic of the customer. And so that's super important before you go into an industry if you're going to be industry specific.
No, I mean that's extremely refreshing because typically when you say, "Oh yeah, we work with small businesses," and it's like, well, definition of working with small business. Well, we figure out a payment that works for them and a term, and it's like, as opposed to going in and actually understanding, and maybe it's not the payment, maybe it's not the term, maybe it's just something else, and people just aren't doing that level of research to understand that.
It is. I always think it's something else. I never think it's pricing or rate, because I always think it's like you can go to the bank and the bank might have a more aggressive rate, but the bank's good at money. The bank is not understanding your equipment when the warranty is up on your equipment. When you're moving from your location, do you have a 3-year lease and you're getting a 5-year note on your piece
Sure,
of equipment? How your cash is flowing. If it's flowing in on a 1-year contract, why are you getting a 3-year no on something that you don't have another contract if that contract's pulled? So we always try to be ethical. Obviously, we have to generate income as well, but we want to
sure.
be we want clients that last forever, and in our company, and that's what keeps the flow going around. So it's hard to go out to even in your just in your area, and wherever you live in your city, to see people who say, we've been in business 30 years. If you do see that, go in there and ask them what they've done, because we want to learn from them. And that's the thing that makes you better.
Nope, same page there, Courtney.
Yeah.
And from I guess a woman-owned business perspective, are you familiar with Star Hill? Have you talked to Hollis?
No.
Okay, I'll make that introduction. Star Hill Financial out of Connecticut.
Awesome.
They're women-owned business, and that's a lot of their focus is on that too. So I'll make that introduction.
That's
Um,
great.
so from an equipment finance perspective, like how did you said 2003 you got in the industry, you graduated high school then. So how'd you find the industry? How'd you stumble into equipment finance?
Oh, my story's funny. So I had a clothing store when I was 20. I opened a clothing store in California, and it was called Chaos. I always call my story Chaos to Capital.
No, was that with a K? Was it with
Yes,
a K?
it was.
Okay.
So that's my story, Chaos to Capital.
Okay.
But the clothing store was right on Coast Highway, and I absolutely loved it. It was something that I didn't know how to shop. I didn't even know where to shop, but I knew how to make people look beautiful. So I started by like really, I would go to TJ Maxx and mark the clothes up at first because I was like, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm just going to make some profit here. And then started figuring out where to shop. I mean, it was really a funny thing. I was young and I just wanted to be, on my own. But 3 years in, we had some fires in California, as you could probably imagine, and the smoke damage, it ruined all the clothes. I was self-funded. I was a sole proprietorship, and I not only lost all my inventory, but I ruined my credit. I literally ran out of cash.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
I folded, and then I had to do everything you never wanna do. Write letters to the credit bureau, never protected myself with an LLC, did all the things wrong. So I had to learn very, swiftly from it. Well, I knew how to do any sales. I sold cars, I sold heavy equipment, I sold mortgage. I was in the mortgage, 80/20 Fremont, days when the, subprime was there. But there was a girl that shopped in my store, I will keep her unnamed, who worked for an equipment finance company. And she said, "You should
Mm,
come work for my company." And I thought, well, if it's sales, I can do it, and I knew I was in debt and I had to get out of debt. I had sales tax that was due on the clothes that I lost. And no bank was lending me money at 20 with no credit established. And I had no
sure,
business credit established. And so I went
sure.
in to the woman's place, and the first deal I ever did, was gonna get me out of debt. And at verbal, the deal folded. And, he didn't he he didn't like the interim rent or whatever, it was at that time. And so I realized
Sure.
the potential in the industry, but at that point, I literally triggered into, why didn't I know this was an option? I could have financed my sign outside, my cash register. I could have gotten terms on my clothing. Didn't know you could protect yourself with an
Right,
LLC. Why
right.
didn't I do this? Because the thing is, like, why would you pay for an employee cash before they started generating revenue? It's like, oh, here's your salary. You want it all in one lump sum, or we're going to pay you as you work. That doesn't make any sense. So why would you pay cash for something that you could pay as it generates ROI? So I started really understanding the business, and I ended up staying there. I was their best salesperson at the time. I remember him writing on the wall because I had hit high numbers
Yeah.
instead
You
of the
got to get the
board.
board. You got the board.
Yeah, and then I decided in 2007, like, I wanna do this on my own, and so I went out on my own, and then 2008 happened,
Mm,
and I went back to work. And so it was just kind of a funny thing, but I always knew how much passion I had for this industry, but what it provides. And so,
sure,
now I pride myself into really the educating part of it, probably a little too
sure.
much. It's so exciting for me, but, just because of being in that position, I don't want anyone to ever feel what I felt having to write the letters to the credit bureau, not thinking that
Yeah,
you're worth being an entrepreneur. And that no should never, it should just never mold who you are as a human. And
sure.
there's just other ways to look at other people's money, and doing it without equity or owing family members, or doing it the smart way. There's ways to scale. And if we have more education in it, it would be great. And so that's how I started. It was just really she walked into my store, shopped with me, and asked me to come work with
No, that's a fantastic. And
them.
what, there's so many things there to unpack in what you mentioned, but the most gratifying thing that I've had in my career is it's not the deal, those whales that I brought in myself. It's the look on somebody else's face when you help them,
Mhm.
um or just helping somebody else feel the feeling that you and I can go out and we can get, just because that's the way we're bred, and I guess
Yeah.
just the nature. But it's helping other people, and I guess it's just hard to, I don't know, it's hard to put a price on that.
It is. And when you're young, and you're trying to build, make something of yourself, it is monetary at first because there's things that you can do to make money. But when you realize the gratification of helping other people. At least, I mean, like you said, for you and me, I know we both like the education side, but it really is, there's something amazing to see when you've watched one location turn into two and then three and four and whatnot, or just growing from the ground up where they had maybe poor credit to start. And we were able to, put a deal together that maybe wasn't the most rate conscious file, but they were able to get the equipment. And then we see them flourish into a credit, potential with not only building business credit, but establishing themselves into, really feeling good about where they've, come up from. And so I love that too, because that was my story. So feeling good about having a good credit score and building on, what you could start with. It's such a cool thing.
Sure, sure. And it's like, if only you knew now back then what you know now. Well, how can I transfer that knowledge over to somebody
Yeah.
else and and make it actually stick? Because there's some
Yes.
things that people just have to experience. Okay, you know what? You think you know everything? Go ahead, go ahead.
Yes,
And I'll
because
do my
knowledge
best.
isn't power unless it's applied. You have to
And
apply the knowledge.
I will do my best to not say I told you so. But I'll just do my best.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But that's the world we live in. But it is people do like education, mostly through COVID. And I
Sure.
just think that there's so much of our, even though we have so many of us, we're small industry, and it's really cool to see everybody come, that when they come together, mostly through COVID times. That was a crazy time. And at that time, my husband fell off our boat and was in the hospital. He couldn't walk for almost 11 months and had five
That,
surgeries.
that's bad timing. I mean,
It
it's never
was,
a good time. It's never a good time when you get
yeah.
hurt that bad. But
But as a
that's even
business,
worse time. Yeah.
it was
Oh,
crazy. It's like we didn't know if businesses were going to stay open. Can we fund on businesses? And then I have an injured spouse that I can't visit. And, there was a lot that's happening. And the thing is, bringing the human factor back to really having empathy, but also being compassionate. You never know what people's journeys are. And I think that brought compassion back to the industry.
no, you're spot on. Never know what baggage. I hate to say that word. I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
bad. Because you never know the ish that someone's going through. Maybe we'll leave it at
Yeah.
that, right?
True.
So, as a serial entrepreneur, I guess we'll call it that, right? Um, like, some lessons learned other than the financing, leasing side of cash flow and everything like that. Um, what other kind of lessons learned, Kortney, would you like to share with our audience here?
If you're a visionary, don't try to be an integrator. That is very difficult. I tried, and I am such a visionary. So I've learned the lessons to put people in place for things that I'm not great at. And I learned those the hard way. So there's things that I was not great at. I'm great at training, but I'm not the greatest at hiring. I hire more with my heart instead of what I should be hiring with. And um, you learn a lot of things when it comes to culture. Also pivoting a little quicker when you see something happening and making sure that you really stick to you. I mean, like I have my mission, vision, and values. You can't
Okay.
do two without the third. So my mission and vision were very clear, but my values got skewed when I hired certain, types of people within, and I let things go a little bit from what I know works and what I really wanted of my company. And when you let that value side go as an entrepreneur, I think that it's like having your chair with only three legs. You can't do one without the other. And so I would just say to anybody who is out there, you can always find help. For 60% of 100% is enough if you're trying to find somebody to delegate to, because that person can learn. The delegation is the only thing that will help you grow. And sometimes you make
Oh, sure.
mistakes, but pivoting faster instead of sitting on those mistakes and knowing in your gut, and also listening to your intuition. Um, that's a real thing. And intuitively, the mistakes I was going to make, I already knew they were going to be mistakes before I made them. and I didn't listen to the intuition because I thought I could turn it around. And so those would be my, I guess, general, without saying more,
Sure. No, I mean,
mistakes.
no, I mean, the first one's critical, right? I mean, we sit there and we have all these ideas and really think, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. But is that really effective use of my time?
Yeah.
And is that my core competency? Probably, most likely not, but it's stubbornness. Or as a small business, it's like, well, really, can I afford to go do that when I can do it myself? But it's time, your time spending doing that task, you could be revenue generating doing something else. So it's still, I struggle with that, Kortney, because I've been on my own now for almost 2 years.
Yes.
And it's hard because it's like, why would I want to pay someone to do that? I can just do that after hours, or I can do this. And like you said, I mean, like there's been some work that my team's taken on that I said beforehand. I'm like, these are my concerns, and we need to. But I figure once you push all that risk forward, and you're aware of it, like you said, pivot. Once those things start to happen, done. You know,
Yeah. And I
like,
think asking for help is a big thing. And collaborating and really using your voice. Like, hey, I need help at this, and this. It's amazing. This journey I've been on, this kind of tour. I've met some really amazing women and men through this process, and how many people are just out there to actually help. It's
sure,
crazy. And it's funny, when I was in a marketing crunch, I had people reach out, and I mean, I had everything given to me, from interns to systems to, I mean, it was almost overwhelming, but it was just so awesome, the input that you're given, because right now today's marketing is so confusing. I mean, there's 10 million platforms, there's podcasts, there's YouTube, there's, I mean, you can't do everything, right? But you have to find
right.
what works for you and where your crowd is. But when you're somebody who's trying to do all of it, I mean, I am social media inept. I get onto my social media and I think I'm posting on all platforms, and then I'll double post it. And then I'm like, I know I look like a narcissist because I'm posting all these things. And it's really confusing at 48 years old. I know that I didn't come from that world. And so it's asking for the help when you're growing in this type of business, because we're people who were brought up with, the handshake and phone call mentality. And when we've changed from that to text messaging to video calls, it's different and it's outside of people's comfort zones. So respecting that with the generations that are upcoming that are working with us, I think that's important as well.
I mean, the whole texting is that's interesting, right? Because when I can't get anyone, they're not answering emails,
Yes,
but I know I've communicated with this person via cell phone. What's the line, right? What's the line before it's like, hey, sorry for the unprofessional text message. However, like, why are you ghosting me? Like, come on, can't
I
you just
know.
say this or this?
I
Just
know. It's a different world. It's really a different world, and it's a world that everybody wants everything now. And so, but you can't be fast and good. What is the phrase? You can't be fast, good, cheap, all of, you can't do all
oh yeah,
three
pick
things.
pick pick two, pick
Yeah,
two, fast, accurate, and cheap.
yeah,
Pick two.
yeah, exactly. So you can't be all three. And so we do the best we can. I think that's in any industry, any service industry. And
Yeah.
it's funny, they were doing a test on, like, somebody was complaining about this restaurant being so slow at their production, and they've been around for many years in New York City, and they wanted to see what the differences were from the previous owner to the new owner, and they were watching on video, and they said what's different, and the reason it takes so much time is because people now, they take pictures of their food. And then they don't order until they have this amount. Then they have to take pictures of each other in the booth, and they do this. So it's actually not the wait staff wanting to be slow coming to them and to the table. It's that they want to wait until they're done talking, taking all of their pictures, then collaborating. And then when they come back, then the meals come out, then they're taking pictures of that and posting it on social media. And I thought, yeah, that we never
That's
did all that back then. That probably
yeah,
does put the
that's interesting. So you can't sell the quality of your food; you sell the experience.
right. Yeah. So it is funny when you think about those things as a business owner,
Yeah,
like how much time it takes to turn a table over in the service industry now, or
sure,
whatnot. That
sure.
takes change out of pockets.
No, 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 that's an interesting, yeah, yeah, you don't think about that at all.
Right.
But I mean, when it comes to this industry, I'm going on almost on my 20th year in
Yeah.
equipment finance, and there's some opportunities that I've been working on for 19 years that are like there. So when people sit there and they're just like, our clients are like, "Hey, well, how fast can you do this?" And I'm just kind of like, speed doesn't kill.
I
It
love the
just
things you're doing. I love it. I think you've done so much.
like why
19
like
years.
I'm not gonna sacrifice my 19 years of cultivating this thing for you to, nah, nah. If there's a need and we can solve it, I'm smart enough to figure out when to go in for that. So
Absolutely.
just
I love the
just
things you've
interesting.
done and for our community and everything like that. I like whether it took you 19 years or not, you're doing a great job.
Well, the reason I went on my own, Courtney, was I was tired of making other people money and then not being able to kind of just be
Yeah.
myself. So, like you, just, well, I just didn't do it as early as you did. I mean, 20 years old, that's incredible. But eventually, you got to put money on yourself and just go.
Yeah, I do think that there's that natural instinct of when you want to, provide for yourself. And I think that that's what is so different now is that there are a lot of things that you can provide money. I mean, everything from Uber to, I mean, whatever it is, there's fast ways to make things happen.
Sure.
And, but in sales, everyone's a salesperson from the day you're born. You're selling your parents on, candy. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're always a salesperson. So when people say, I'm not great at sales, I think, yeah, you are. You just have to know what you're passionate about. You can sell pretty much anything to anyone because that's what you do the rest of your life. And it's if you're an entrepreneur, you decide if you want to do it for yourself. And there's going to be failures, and there's going to be pivots, and there's going to be days you want to pull your hair out. And then there's going to be really
Well,
happy floating times, but those were worked for.
yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever worked so hard. I mean, the salesperson, when you're on top of that board, right? You go out and it's like, all right, I got this quarter in the bag. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go to the beach. I'm gonna go play golf. I'm gonna go do this. And all of a sudden, I look at that now and I'm like, oh, yeah, free time. No, something else. Kids.
I know the only time I see my boat is when I'm putting it away for a hurricane. I'm like, I get that. I get that.
Oh, awesome. There's so many additional topics I want to get to, but I know we only have like 15 minutes left, so I want to make sure we touch on the main ones, and definitely going to have you back on here. So I want to talk about the AACFB and kind of what that association means to you and what it's meant to Coastal Capital, if you don't mind.
Well, the AACFB, it's funny when I went out on my own, I actually joined the AACFB so I could get FedEx labels on a discount. And so this was a thing back in 2007 or whatever time it was when I joined. It was a long time ago. And I thought discounts on FedEx labels because everything back then was paper. And then I realized the offerings that they had. And I thought, this is a really great community. But at the time, I had parted ways from, being with this person that had shopped in my store. And I parted ways with companies. And I was still afraid of seeing everyone that were funders and things before because I had gone on my own. I was still young and I didn't really go to the events at first. And then when I started navigating into the events, I started seeing friends that I had made and people I'd known and then putting names with the funders and building the bigger relationships. And when I knew that was a reason that I could get out there and serve a better purpose with the community and mostly with the broker side. Again, education is really important to me. And so I wanted to serve any part I could with the education part of AACFB and also joining a association that offers a lot to a lot of people. The events are one thing, but just offers a lot. They want to do a lot for the association and the whole, really the whole just industry. in general, and watching it grow from, you know, broker times to, you know, bigger broker times, a lot of funders interacting. It's something that's very meaningful to me. I've served on the board now for, I think, 3 years. I'm the vice president this year. And we have 2 new people that just have come on. We have a great board, and we have a lot of great ideas coming up into our future and the things that are happening. I like to be a part of that. And so it really lets me serve more than just my community, because here in the community, you're small, but there and it also, I think the most fun part of it is really just getting to talk shop with all of the people who love to talk shop, because we get to be around people who like to
Yeah,
talk about the same things we do.
yeah, yeah. And even some of those people, you might even compete on some deals there and there, but you're still gonna. We all have similar challenges, right? You guys are all facing, or ladies are all facing similar things.
Yeah. We all help each
And
other. We actually all
yeah,
help each other, and none of us have ever. It's funny. I had a deal come over probably a few months back, and I saw the name that they were, you know, using before, who was a friend of mine. I said, you know, they're really, really good, and they're a friend of mine. And I'm going to let them know that you are applying. You know, we don't want to do bad business ever, but
sure,
I also
sure.
know, like, that's the, you know, hand that feeds you, and that's my friend. And he said, take it, you know, these are the things that happen with this file, and, you know, if you have a home for it, we don't, because they didn't process the same type of files that we did. And I respected that, but having respect for one another. And it's funny, like when you have something that's a downturn, or an upturn, and you can share it with the people in the industry, they really are there to support you. No one's there really as competition. Yeah, we're competing when we're on our own floors, but when we're together, we're family.
Like I said, this interview can keep going on and on and on. But no, I mean that's perfect. I mean, I've had where people have reached out and they say, "Hey," or I've gotten a resume that's come across my desk, and I'm just like, "Wow, would love to have you work with me." Um, However, I'm good friends with your current boss.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a phone call, and if he or she tells me no, then I'm sorry, I'm not gonna interview you. Um, and I mean that's tough, right? I
It
mean
is.
but I mean, one of the people said, "Hey, you know what? If they're interviewing, I'm not doing something right myself. I'd rather them go work for
Yep.
you than go somewhere else." So I mean, it's just that common courtesy that people really don't think too much of, because oh, it's going to impact the bottom line. You doing that is going to come back more than tenfold.
It really does. And look at how, I mean, when people are in this industry, they stay in this industry mostly when they love it. And you see them go different places, and everybody
Yeah,
has the same respect for them, and we still merge, you know, mesh the same way. I always tell everybody collaboration is the new currency, because if we don't talk to each other and help build one another, then we're not doing anything for each other. I mean, anything that you can do to help build somebody else, or like, I was talking to one of the board members the other day about some new marketing tools and new things that they're using. And I was like, oh, wow, why didn't I think of that? Can you make an introduction? Nobody's afraid of making an introduction to a new lender or a new program or a new system, or, you know, whatever
sure.
is. And it's just I want everybody to always remember that they can reach out anytime, because we're all here to support each other, our funders, our brokers, everyone. And I think that that's what makes this community.
Well, you and I are on the same page,
Yeah.
Courtney, for sure. Um, so I ask everyone that comes on the program to give me a little fun fact, um, about themselves. Now, I know you're interviewed quite a bit, so maybe there's already information that I didn't find. But what makes Kortney tick outside of chaos, coastal capital? What do you do when your business brain is not engaged? And it's probably
Oh,
the 1% of the time, you know.
I love to travel. I mean, that's a big, big must. I'm a foodie. I love good food. I love to cook. But mostly my husband and I love to travel towards concerts. We love music. And so we're big. If somebody's playing, let's go there, see the show. Then we'll go to, you know, make just kind of a vacation around it. And so we do try to take some time for ourselves. I'm also certified in yoga, which seems crazy because my life is chaos, but I have a yoga room in my home and I use it very swiftly because I think it's quieting the brain, allows you to use your intuition. So
It's fantastic. I love all those things except for yoga. No one wants to see me doing a child's pose. I mean, child's pose, but like some of the other stuff, nah, doesn't really speak yoga.
yoga is really quieting the mind. It's really just mindset.
Yeah.
And
I think of it as bad stretching for me. It's like
well, there's things you can do for chair. We sit in the chair a lot, Jesse.
anyhow, I'll try to keep it PG-13. So we won't go there. But what's I guess the best place you've been to, and food at the place?
Well, that's funny that because I mean, one of my favorite places was Tortola in British Virgin Islands, but it was COVID, so I cooked everything. And I got stuck there with COVID. So I guess my food was the best there.
There you go.
I will say I did get a chance to go visit Little Palm Island, which is a really very remote island here. You can only get there by plane or boat. And they had an amazing chef there that had, well, they had like oysters with caviar on it. And so like it was just very special. So I would say
Sure.
that was probably my most favorite. It was a anniversary experience. We went for a couple days, but just to have something that was that high quality. There were deers that were, the little baby deer were there. They would eat flowers, they would eat roses. And I was like, I just felt like it was out of body experience. So to provide that, like, in your life and just enjoy to sit back and relax and enjoy the food and taste it. Because at lunch, we don't taste our food. We work really hard. We probably put it in front of us and we're not mindfully even eating. So I think
Yeah.
anything you eat when you're out of your, enjoying yourself is good.
Everyone's like, so yeah, I'm one of those people that I like to go to nice places. I like good food, and I might be the jerk that takes longer because I'm taking photos of certain foods. So I'm one of those problems. But when people are like, "Oh, the steakhouses you go to are amazing. What's the best one?" I'm like, "The one I make for myself."
Always reverse sear.
And they're just like, "What? What about the pasta?" The pasta that, well, besides Italy, outside of going to Italy, like the best pasta is the pasta I make for myself, the cheese I make. Like I love to cook. It centers, it calms me. It's just one of those things I just enjoy doing it. Now cleaning up, nah, no. Let some kids, somebody else can clean my disaster of the kitchen when I'm done. But no, I mean, I just cooking is just, I don't know. Maybe that's my yoga. That's my yoga.
That is.
I guess.
I love cooking. My husband does a lot of it now too, and it is his relaxation, and it's because we do a lot during the day with our mind. You have to relax it somehow, and it's important to have that balance. We have to realize that if we take a couple hours, the world's not going to, crumble.
No.
And our clients aren't going to crumble. And that's something that took me a long time because we used to answer calls after work. And now I have a separate business phone and cell phone, and I do not get my cell phone out. So
I envy to be there. One of these days. So, Kortney, my last question I have for you is, why should someone want to do business with Kortney Murray and Coastal Capital?
I think authenticity and transparency is really what holds the true key. I think that I teach my staff and anyone who works under this umbrella that we have to be very honest with our clients, even if it looks like an amazing deal and we can get a great approval or whatnot. We have to let them know if they can't afford it. And I know that sounds sometimes crazy, but we're doing a just service for our bank as well as our client to help them grow efficiently. And I just think honesty in this company is the best policy. And that's why I think people would like to come to us because we are honest with our clients.
100%. And this has been a pleasure. I can't believe we've been speaking with this long. It seems like it's 5 minutes, but I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, okay, I have to be
Awesome.
rude. But I would love to have you back on the program at some point in time. I believe our paths are going to cross in what, 6 weeks ish
Yes.
in New Orleans for the
Yes.
ACFB conference.
That will be
So
fun.
it'll be good to see you down there. And
Yes.
just want to thank you again for your time today, Kortney.
It was super fun, Jesse. Thank you for having me and reaching out.
Okay, we'll be talking soon. Thank you.
Great.